everybody, it's Diesel from Imagine Your Goddess, and I am here to give you a deck profile over one of the decks that Ash has been messing around with recently. This is a Leopold deck. I have it set up in the classic Japanese style of looking at cards, where we have everything lined up for you. So let us know if you like this, or if you prefer our normal spread them out piece at a time. So to begin with, I have 4 Guru Tiger in the deck. Guru Tiger is a Legion card. It legions with Capable Assistant, Guru Wolf, and it has the ability that when it's in Legion, as an activated ability, you can discard a copy of one of the Legion cards, choose 2 of your rear guards, and they gain the ability to recur if they've died at the end phase of the turn. It also has an auto ability that when it attacks a Vanguard, you can give one of your rear guards plus 4,000, and it retires at the end of turn. That effect we generally call lighting on fire. So that's Guru Tiger, and Guru Tiger's ability is really to help you recur for those final end turns if you can, but you're going to stride more often than worry about the effects of your grade 3s. That being said, the other grade 3 is Leopold Reverse. Leopold Reverse has the ability to lock 2 rear guards, or lock a rear guard to give 2 rear guards plus 4,000, die at the end of turn. Just making sure I say everything right. They get 4,000, 2 of them get 4,000. At the end of the turn, retire. And at the end phase, if they are put into the drop zone, call back to rear, so they recur. Also, if you have a regular Leopoldan Soul, he becomes a cross-ride. We do not have regular Leopoldan deck. His ability is best used when you're kind of at the end of your limit and you're just trying to make one good column to finish the game off. He's pretty good at doing that. Into the grade 2 lineup, we have 4 copies of Crayon Tiger. Crayon Tiger is a GB1 once per turn. When it attacks and is boosted, you may counterblast 1. If you do so, choose one of your units, stand it, give it 4,000 until end of turn, and I believe that unit dies at the end of turn and you get to draw a card. Yes. He's the big setup for your final turn, so he's the most worthwhile to get on the board at the end of the game. We run 4 copies of Binoculus Tiger. Binoculus Tiger, when it attacks a Vanguard, sets something on fire. Gives it 4,000, it dies at the end of the turn. We run 3 copies of Capable Assistant Guru Wolf. He's the Legion to Guru Tiger, but also his rearguard ability is when his attack hits a Vanguard, if his attack power is over 20,000, you get to draw a card. Getting over 20,000 is not a hard thing in this deck. So getting one of these on the board, especially when you're starting to do your ditch shenanigans, you might be able to get a +3/+4 off of them, which is really, really good. Moving into grade 1s, we have 4 copies of Cable Sheep. Cable Sheep's a regular perfect guard, meaning it can block the rear guard and the vanguard. We use it because Crayon Tiger needs to stay on the board. Also, you don't really need your counterblast that much, so in the end, it's usually okay to go ahead and not have the damage on Flipper. Some people will play the damage on Flipper instead, more power to them. Me personally, I like the Cable Sheep. We run 4 copies of Paint Otter, the Limit Break Enabler. The Limit Break Enabler's in there because you will end up using Leopold Reverse's ability on occasion, and being able to use it before 4 is actually more beneficial than using it at the end of the game. So I really like the notion of starting a game off with one really big column that keeps coming back, and it's so cost effective, it's totally worthwhile. But you do have to have Paint Otter on board while you're doing the effects, so make sure that you don't lock him and mess up everything. 4 copies of Coiling Duckbill are next. Coiling Duckbill. During your main phase, when you play it on the rear guard, choose a unit. That unit gets, when it dies, draw a card. This is one of the main focuses of the deck. It gets you hand advantage. It is a good 7k booster. It's probably the best card for Great Nature ever made since before Crayon Tiger. And since Crayon Tiger, it's still one of the best cards ever made. Lastly, for grade 1s, I run 3 Mika Saburo. Or 2, I'm sorry, Mika Saburo. Mika Saburo's ability is similar to Duckbill's. When he's placed on rear, during the main phase, you choose a unit. That unit gets, when that card dies, search your deck for a grade 3 and put it into your hand. It's hand advantage. It gets you a grade 3 for striding. It's not quite as good as Coiling Duckbill in my personal opinion, just because Coiling Duckbill gives you any card and this only gives you grade 3. But it's not bad. 4 triggers I run. 4 heal, 8 crit, and 4 draw. The draw I run is Castanet Donkey, which can be put into the soul during the during the main phase to give a unit +3 until end of turn. You might use that if you're trying to finish off a game, but in general, triggers are triggers. 4 draw, 8 crit, 4 heal. Going into the starter, we run 1 copy of Blackboard Olm, or Blackboard Parrot. Blackboard Parrot, as an activated ability, can be put into the soul, and he gives a unit the ability that when it dies, draw a card. So it's another Coiling Duckbill effect, but it happens when you throw it in the soul. Totally worthwhile. I suggest it highly. Let's move into the strides. We run 1 copy of Immortality Professor Phoenixclax. Ugh. It's a stride that when it attacks a Vanguard, choose 2 of your rear guards and set them on fire. Plus 4,000, and they die at the end of the turn. He's a good first stride. Between him and Wisdom Teller, you might choose Wisdom Teller for certain effects and Phoenixclax for others. But Phoenixclax hits 2 creatures, so it's definitely worthwhile to use if you have some recursion effect going on, or if you really don't care about those rear guards but care about hitting hard. Wisdom Teller Dragon, we run 1 of. When this unit's attack hits a Vanguard, which is different than attacking the Vanguard, you get to choose 1 rear guard instead of 2. But that rear guard gets 4,000, and if it attacks a Vanguard and its power is greater than 20,000, draw a card. Notice that this one does not retire the creature in question. So this is a really good one to put the damage on your Crayon Tiger, try to make sure, or the power on your Crayon Tiger, and try to make sure that your Crayon Tiger is hitting for a super good amount and drawing a card. Or you throw it on your capable assistant and you draw more cards. Whatever works. We run 2 copies of Leopold Chaser. Leopold Chaser's ability is when it attacks a Vanguard and Leopold's a heart card, you get to choose up to 1 of your rear guards. It gets 4,000 power, and it retires at the end of the turn. And when it retires, search your deck for a copy of that card and put it into your hand, and then shuffle your deck. Yeah. So one of the cons of it is if you've ridden into Guru Tiger, you don't want to ride into Leopold, because Leopold doesn't give you any effects if you don't have Leopold as your Vanguard. But if you do ride into Reverse and you ride into Leopold, the ability that it gives you lets you give your Coiling Duckbill the ability that when it dies, you get to search for a Coiling Duckbill and show it to your opponent. Putting more Coiling Duckbills in your hand means more draw cards, and it itself pluses you a draw card. If you can get this going with recursion effects, you end up in this really cool little sweet spot where everything is returning to field. You're getting to draw a bunch of cards and search for cards that let you draw cards later. Very, very long process of games with this. Finally, we run 4 copies of Omniscience Dragon Menegarmer. Menegarmer's activated ability, once per turn, is that you can counterblast 1 and flip up a copy of himself. If the G-Zone has 2 or more face-up cards in it, or rather, if the number of face-up is in your G-Zone are 2 or more, you get to choose 2 rear guards. They get 4,000 power, and the ability that when they attack a Vanguard, if they are 20,000 power or more, your opponent cannot use grade 1s or greater to guard with. So it means that they can't use perfect shields, and they can't use grade 2s and such from their hand to block. They can still intercept, but not from their hand. He's sort of the powerhouse, the thing that makes sure that your opponent wastes all their zeros guarding things, and he's really well used for any middle turns in the game. But you only get to use his ability twice at most, if you're lucky, so make it count. Alright, so I guess I should talk about combos in the deck, or at least the notion of getting what would be a perfect field. I'm going to pause real quick, and I'll come back with that. Alright everyone, the name of the game with this deck is Advantage. You are trying to build as much advantage as you can as quickly as possible. Often games with this deck will go well into 3rd or 4th stride, maybe even further, just because of the sheer number of cards you get in your hand. But I want to talk about other situations that can occur that would help you out. Now, in this example, I've ridden from the Perfect Shield and gotten into Binoculus Tiger. Now, this isn't an optimal setup for a lot of decks because you don't want to have to get rid of your Binoculus early. You certainly don't usually like riding into Perfect Guards. But I'm going to show you something that could happen that would make this all beneficial. So let's say you have a captain in your, or a capable assistant in your hand, you have another Binoculus Tiger, and you have a Coiling Duckbill. So if I play down the cards like this, I give Coiling Duckbill's effect to Guru Wolf. And I use Blackboard Parrot on turn 2 on Guru Wolf. So right now we're looking at Guru Wolf at some point is going to be able to die and draw me 2 cards. Then I go ahead and attack with my Vanguard and use Vanguard Binoculus' ability on Capable Assistant. Then I attack with the side row, using the ability again on Capable Assistant. Finally, any triggers that I had pulled, I would hopefully get to put on Capable Assistant, depending on what's going on. But let's say I didn't pull any trigger on my draw check. I still pushed up Capable Assistant to 17k, which is as good as anything without a booster. If you happen to have a booster as well, then you have the ability to trigger off his extra ability and draw an additional card if your opponent lets that attack through. So on turn 2, your opponent has 2 choices. They can either block a 9, block a 16, and block anywhere from a 17 to a 24, or they can let you draw 3 cards, having blocked part of that or taken 3 damage. It ends up setting you up for a pretty good rush turn. At the end of that turn, all effects would end, this would die, and you would get to draw 2 cards. And that would set you up, having used 3 cards on a turn, to get back 2, maybe 3 cards, putting you at a net loss of 0, or +1. For turn 2 turn that rushes that hard, that's a really good effect to have. Alright, let's talk about a grade 3 situation. A nice situation, let's say, for striding into Leopold Chaser. So, for this effect, you would hope that somewhere in your hand you have some coiling duckbills, maybe Mikasaburo, but you would like a field with at least one Cran Tiger on it, and situationally speaking, either Capable Assistant or Binoculus Tiger on the other side. I personally like Capable Assistant in this particular case, so I'm going to pretend like Capable Assistant is what gets flipped. So, I ride in a Leopold Chaser, and I set down my Coiling Duckbill and my Mika Saburo, both targeting my Guru Wolf. If I have Blackboard Olm, assuming the last situation did not happen, I get to put Blackboard Olm in and give him another ability to draw. At this point, I look for abilities and how to plus the best that I can. So if that means I have another Coiling Duckbill in my hand, maybe I play it and add it to the assistant one more time. If not, maybe I play the draw trigger, put it in the soul, the assistant +3. That way he's a little closer to hitting that 20,000 marker that he needs to hit. But either way, it's kind of the setup that you want to get going. Okay? My personal choice on this would be to swing with the 9K at some rear guard. Make sure that your opponent has to either block or lose a rear guard in this whole big process, because by the time you're done, you're going to need the situation that your opponent can't intercept. Then you attack with Vanguard. At this point, you're attacking with Vanguard. Leopold Chaser's ability goes off. You choose to put the 4000s on Coiling Duckbill and Capable Assistant. Some people would put that 4000 on Cran Tiger. You absolutely could. I want to try to hit those numbers to where I get to draw more cards. So, one of my Coiling Duckbills is getting bit. Maybe the one that is boosting right now, so that I get an extra 4000 on the boost. That would put my attack at 26, 30, 37. Or put it on the rear guard so that the Cran Tiger will be swinging for even more power. And then I do my drive checks. Any drive checks I get, I'm going to want to put the ability onto Captain, most likely, or Capable Assistant, most likely. And that'll just raise his power, raise his ability. But again, let's assume that we are just scrubbing hard and we hit no triggers. So right now, Captain's at 13, and this is just a simple 33 column. So your opponent still has to block the 33, or some similar effect, take damage. And then we swing with Cran Tiger. Cran Tiger's ability goes off, we counterblast 1, we stand Capable Assistance, and give him +4. And the fact that he's going to retire at the end of turn. Then you swing with the final column here of Capable Assistant. Capable Assistant has gained +8 from fire abilities, putting him up to 17. And then another 7 from the booster, putting him at 24. And he also has any other effects that you might have gotten if you were lucky and got the donkey on there, pushes him up. But let's assume the field is as it is, and you're swinging at 24. So you got to swing with an over 21 column, an over 21 column, and a 2000 column in one turn. Then, at the end of the turn, when effects resolve, Leopold goes away, the ability goes off, and Mikasaburo dies, or Capable Assistant dies. You get to draw 1, 2, 3 from Blackboard Olm cards. You get to search a card from your deck, or a copy of Capable Assistant from your deck, and put it in your hand. So, 1, 3. Okay. Your Coiling Duckbill also dies, and you get to get a copy of Coiling Duckbill and put it into your hand. Okay? Plus you had your trigger draws from that last turn. This is how many cards you got in one turn based on that attack. Plus the fact that your opponent had to use 15k shields on a final rearguard attack if they didn't want you to draw an additional card. This is one of those moments where Great Nature really shines because you did a lot of work, you didn't lose a lot on your board, but you gained so much in your hand. And it gives you the ability to block for another turn, to set up for the next turn. Everything there goes well. The bad thing being that you have a couple of Mika Sabrados that aren't moving. But hey, at least you have the effects set up in a way that if you need to use reverse next turn, you've got something you can lock. If you ride into Guru Tiger, you can get rid of your Mika Sabrados and such and try to balance out the board. And you still have your Cran Tiger alive, and you can keep him alive for a while, judging on what you get out of your 9 extra cards for the turn. Alright guys, continuing as if I had left off from the last turn. Let's say I managed to capably block, and I don't get as lucky as I'd like to, but I still have cards that I know I can count on from the next turn. Okay? So I ditch a grade 3 to ride into Managarmir. And at this point, everything is left off as if the last turn just happened the way that it was supposed to happen. Meaning I have this Captain's Assistant, and I know I have this Coiling Duckbill. Again, I say go ahead and put the ability on the Capable Assistant, because you know that the Capable Assistant is okay to die. Sometimes people will put it on the Mika Sabrado, and that's okay too. Because I think that getting that, all you have to do is get that column's power up high enough, because since it checks the attack power at damage, it has to do with the attack being boosted as well. It has nothing to do with just the base attack of that creature. So, you could put it on the Mika Saburo. I'm going to put it on the Captain's Assistant, because that's the kind of player I am. And I'm going to go ahead and Counterblast 1, and use Managarmir's effect to choose 2 of my rear guards, and give them plus 4,000, and when that unit attacks, if it's at 20,000 or more, your opponent cannot call grade 1s. Now, specifically saying you should probably put those 2 effects on your Cran Tiger and your Guru Wolf. That would be the most beneficial way of making sure that you get as many times as that 20,000 can go off. So let's set it up that way. Then we go ahead and start attacks. Again, a 9k at the opponent's rear guard is a good way to get them off balance. Everything is going to go off, and they're going to have to choose whether or not they like having that 9k around. Then we swing with Managarmir himself. Managarmir has no abilities left, so we just do a simple drive check. Now at this point we've been drawing cards just crazy out of the deck. So the deck has been thinning out and should probably hit a trigger or 2. If it does, you can go ahead and put those effects onto Assistant, or you can put those effects onto Cran Tiger. Whichever one seems like the better idea based on your opponent's leftover hand. But at this point, they should be running pretty low on hand, because they've had to block several attacks through. But you go through. This is attacking for at least 20, and hopefully you have another damage so that you can flip up Capable Assistant and give him another plus 4. Okay, so right now Capable Assistant is going to draw 2 cards for us, and he's not going to be able to be blocked by grade 1s. This 20k column is not being blocked by grade 1s. So we might have anywhere from 20 to 30 going on at this point. It's totally worth giving a shot. And then, finally, we end with the big number. At this point, it's 24 minimum without triggers. And if they can't guard with grade 1s, and if they let it go, they hit. And then finally, the end of turn rolls around. This is the only thing that dies, because it was the only thing given an effect that allows it to die. And you get to draw 2 more cards at the end of the turn. So, that is quite a bit of damage and processing. Like any normal rush build, it really likes hitting those hard aggro numbers. And you get a lot of benefits for doing so. But it takes quite a good field. Your opponent can't have killed off your Crayon Tiger. They can't have done other things. But that doesn't mean that you're stuck. That's what Binoculus Tiger is for. So if you have Binoculus Tiger on the board instead, everything works the same way, except you don't swing for that initial 9 with Capable Assistant. Instead, you would probably swing with this column, give Capable Assistant the plus. This is a 20k column that your opponent would have to block because of Mana Garmir's effect. Then you'd swing with Mana Garmir, giving all pluses to Capable Assistant, going for the big swing that can't be guarded and that draws cards at the end of turn. So you really have options. Just make sure that something on your field makes things retire. Because if you don't get the retire effects, you don't get the draw effects from the things that you put on. You don't get Mika Saburo's effect from the things you put on. Even if it has a recursion effect, you should think about setting up your field for those moments. If you do not have at least one burn effect on board, you are not doing anything big that turn. In that sense, this deck is not very good against the Link Joker builds, because your opponent can lock your fire starter, and you're just lost. You're just lost. But you still have plenty of effects. You could always use Mana Garmir's effect to boost one column up, and you only get your non-guarding effect one time because only one of these cards is attacking. But it would give you a +8 to the column, which is totally worth giving a shot. I think that's everything that I can show you off of this. We might show you a few games with this later on to give you even more detail on how to play. If we do, the link will be below. But in the meantime, I'd suggest you build, give it a shot, see what you think, and make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. We'll talk to you soon.